Hey, I'm Drew, and this is the Drew Petersen Podcast, home to one chairlift ride, ski pole microphone, and real story at a time. This chairlift chat is with Olympian Zoe Atkin. Zoe is the reigning 2025 world champion in the halfpipe, and she's also coming hot off another X Games gold medal that she just recently won here in Aspen. This week, she's in Livigno, Italy, competing and vying for an Olympic medal. I linked up with Zoe last spring in Mammoth at a late season training camp, which was a unique time to connect with her because she was coming off of the most successful winter of her career. But it was also long enough before the full hysteria, hype, and really the pressure had set in of the 2026 Olympics. Before we drop in, a quick note from this episode's sponsor. We hear mental health awareness all the time, but awareness doesn't just mean knowing something exists. It means wanting to engage and do something about it. So my definition of mental health awareness is giving a fuck. I started making these I give a fuck about mental health hats to fund my last film, Feel It All, about mental health. And ever since then, I've been receiving messages from people, not just that they're their favorite hats, but that they've really been helping start conversations and create space for real, honest vulnerability. That's pretty awesome that can just come from a hat. Now, behind the scenes, I've been working to turn I Give a Fuck About Mental Health into more of a standalone brand so that it can help more people. So stay tuned for more of that. But in the meantime, I wanted to offer you as a listener an exclusive discount on the hats. So you can grab one of these OG hats using code POD20 for 20% off at checkout. And that is, of course, in the show notes and just about everywhere else. All right, let's raise the bar, keep your tips up, and drop in. Zoe, we are skiing pipe at Mammoth, and by that I mean you are skiing pipe at Mammoth, and I am watching. You just came off of a year winning world championships and a Crystal Globe. You're going into an Olympic year. How do you wrap your head around the mind games of going off such a successful year into the Olympics?
Wow. Honestly, that's a really good question. Thank you for having me, by the way. I'm really excited to chat about this. Yeah, honestly, it's something that I've really struggled with in my career is kind of being able to come off the highs and the lows and, embrace the whole journey. For me, I did my first Olympics back in 2022 in Beijing, and I had quite a bit of success like as a young age. So I kind of went into the Olympics with like a lot of expectations and, really high expectations of myself. And, it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. And I feel like I had a really, big disappointment and a lot of struggle after that, trying to get my mind back into skiing and everything like that. And after that, I feel like I really learned to be able to enjoy the process and focus on, progression and not necessarily like perfection at every single competition. And I think also being a Stanford student as well, I think kind of grounding my identity in something outside of my sport has been super helpful. So it's like, obviously I want to go into this season. I want to, do really well. And I want to win the Olympics and all those things. And I'm doing everything in my power to make that happen. But at the same time, it's, like finding passion and purpose, like in the journey, in the everyday.
That was extremely eloquently said. And I hear a process mindset instead of an outcomes mindset coming through there. What do you think from a sports psychology perspective has you better prepared for this Olympics? Is it from past experience or is it from like diving into the sports psych side? Like what has prepared you this time?
Totally. I honestly think it's definitely a combination of things. I think on one hand, I think I've been able to kind of grow like my growth mindset and really be able to embrace like the failures along the way and, not really expect everything to go perfectly the first time. And I think that's really integral to learning new tricks or practicing every day. It's like, people aren't really seeing that process. They see it at the end when it's like, your perfect manicured run top to bottom at a competition. But like the nitty gritty of every day, it's like learning to, I guess, fall in love with that process. So that's something I've learned. I read a lot of like books and stuff, like self-help books. I'm like, I love those. And I've taken a couple classes at Stanford with some amazing professors that have really helped me like dive into like the science behind it and like the mechanisms behind that. So yeah, I think that's a really big part. But yeah, I think just falling in love with the sport again and like finding passion for it is really important. Like you want to have fun at the end of the day.
I love that.
Is that short? Should we go again?
We are turning this into a 2 chairlift ride episode. So we kind of left off talking about how you're taking classes at Stanford very casually to prepare for the Olympics, but you're actually a student there. So what are you studying? What's your major? And what led to you committing to both skiing and school to that level right now?
It's a good question. Thank you for having me for the 2-part. I feel very honored. Okay, so as I mentioned kind of in the last part, I was having a little bit of a mental health break from skiing right after the 2022 Olympics, just struggling with like a lot of disappointment and everything like that. And that's when I started at Stanford. And I kind of, I was able to, explore other interests and other passions and be like a person outside of my performance in skiing. So I feel like that was super helpful for me. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I was going to like come back to skiing, but I decided to take the winter off of Stanford and, focus on skiing. And that's seasons when I won my X Games medal. And it kind of just like goes to show like kind of being able to have other passions and interests and how that can help your performance and everything like that. And I'm a symbolic systems major. So that basically means it's kind of hard to explain, but it's basically like minds and machines. So I study like decision making and rationality in the human brain, but also in like computers, like AI systems and stuff like that. And I think that's been it's very different from what I do on skis, obviously, but at the same time, it's been really interesting to kind of like learn about the brain and the mind and kind of the mind's processes and everything like that. And as I struggle with fear a lot as an action sport athlete, definitely learning about those processes has really helped me kind of, abstract from, when you're feeling fear, it's so primal, it's so like, but, you're able to like abstract, like, it's just like a process. You can kind of like more easily like overcome things like that. So yeah.
Thank you for explaining what symbolic systems means, because I guarantee that all of the listeners are just like me and they're too embarrassed to ask. So that's pretty cool. In that realm, back to the sports psych kind of side of things and dealing with that fear on the ski side, what class or even specific lesson from school stands out most in how you apply it to skiing now?
That's a really good question. Honestly, something my sports psych, I work with sports psych, and something she tells me all the time is kind of not to buy in too much to your emotions. And I think that's really, something that I struggle with for sure is like, when I'm sad, I'm like, I don't feel like, training today, or, if I don't feel motivated, I don't want to go to the gym and all those things. And she kind of always reminds me that you can do those things. Like you can push yourself and progress and work towards your goals, no matter how you feel. Like you can do it even if you're scared. You can do it even if you're feeling unmotivated. You can do it at any time. And I feel like that's a really important, lesson to learn. It's being able to like separate yourself from your emotions. It's important to have those, of course, but you want to work towards your goals as well.
All right. Well, on the note of emotions, my emotion is stoke and gratitude for getting to do this with you. So now I guess this one's actually the end. You're going to go train pipe. I'm going to go hit side booters and hit rails.
Thank you.
Another high five. Woo. Thanks to Zoe for joining me for a double chairlift chat. While we didn't plan to dive into sports psychology as the main theme of the podcast, I'm sure glad that we did. Because in doing so, my greatest takeaway was that while Zoe termed it a mental health break following the 2022 Olympics, we were really talking about mental performance in the realm of sports psychology. And I think that shows that if you use any nomenclature, mental health can be an umbrella for what it means to be human. And of course, in her case, it's to compete on the world stage. So this week, you can watch Zoe in the Olympics. Qualifiers are on the 19th, finals are on the 21st, and you better believe that I'm going to be tuning in. You can also follow Zoe on Instagram at Zoe A. Atkin. You can follow me and the show on Instagram at Drew Peterski, and subscribe to the Substack for the weekly newsletter with the podcast. Thanks to this episode's sponsor, you can also find all of the discounts from the show's sponsors at any point in time via the website or that Substack. All right, all that's linked in the show notes. And the spiel is getting better. So that's it for this ride. Thanks for listening to the Drew Petersen podcast. Until next run, keep your tips up. Ski and enjoy, my friends.